World War II was one of the most devastating wars that ever took place, claiming the lives of over 60 million people. During this period, a number of mysteries arose, which to this date are still not solved. Number 4. The Blutfahne. In 1923, Hitler made a failed attempt to overthrow the German government and install his own in its place. Spurred on by political actions that implied Germany was taking the fall for starting World War I, the 35,000 members of the Nazi Party were aiming high, but their failure set the groundwork and the mythology for the rise of their party years later. Hitler and 600 of his men attempted to take over a beer hall at which the Bavarian Prime Minister was speaking, and Hitler managed to gain the support of the audience. Now, with 3,000 men, the Nazis attempted to take over key government buildings. It was a failure though. Hitler was arrested 2 days later and tried for treason. During the shootout, 16 Nazi party members died. After Hitler was released from prison, he was given a flag that had been stained with the blood of his fallen comrades. They became the first martyrs of the Nazi party. The flag became known as Die Blutfahne, or the blood flag, and it was one of the earliest symbols of the myths and rituals that would grow around the Nazi party. It was used in all the major ceremonies. Its touch was thought to sanctify other flags with its power, and SS officers swore their oath to it. It even had its own keeper, an SS member named Jacob Grimmenger. The last time Die Blutfahne was seen in public was in October 1944. No one knows whether it was destroyed in the bombings at the end of the war, rescued and shuttled away, or whether an unwitting Allied soldier took it, unaware of its significance. The keeper of the blood flag not only survived the war, but later took a minor position as a city official in Munich. All his property had already been confiscated, and he died a poor man. Number 3. Subhash Chandra Bose. Subhash Chandra Bose was a leader of the Indian National Army during the years surrounding World War II. From the Allied point of view, he was a dangerous traitor. Bose had visited both German and Japanese leaders and had been in the friendly company of Stalin. His actions have long been up for debate, with supporters saying that he was less interested in following along with Axis ideals than he was in finding an enemy of the British he could ally himself with. The stories of Bose's life are worthy of a Bond movie, escaping British surveillance, fleeing to Italy, covert meetings, and taking different identities. There's a lot that's still unknown about the Indian revolutionary. One of the things that's always been questioned is how he died. According to the official story, Bose died in a plane crash in 1945. His body was cremated and his ashes were taken to a place of honor at the Renkoji Temple near Tokyo. There are a lot of people that don't believe the story. Some even have gone so far as to name the man whose ashes really sit in Bose's place. They say the ashes belong to Ichiro Okura, a Japanese officer from the Taiwanese army. It's claimed that the plane crash story was fabricated in order to throw people off the trail of the real Bose. The entire country is still hoping that they might one day find out what happened to their patriotic leader, but it's not going to happen anytime soon. On December the 1st, 2014, the National Democratic Alliance refused another request to make public the classified files that are being held on Bose. There are 39 files that have been withheld from the public in varying degrees. In some cases, their contents, but not the actual files, have been divulged. The government also refused to publish documents that have already been marked as unclassified. According to the public information officers responsible for denying the request, it was done because the information contained in the documents could in some way harm India's relationship with other countries. Number 2. British soldiers of Auschwitz. In 2009, historians were doing a routine maintenance on one of the buildings at the most infamous Nazi death camp of them all, Auschwitz. During the work, they uncovered a strange list. It contained the names of 17 British soldiers. There were check marks next to 8 of the names. No one knows what the list was for. Also written on the paper were a few German words, and these words don't make the mystery any clearer. The words that have been identified are "since then," "never," and now. There are a couple of guesses about the purpose of the list and who the men were. One is that they were British prisoners of war. There were many housed at Auschwitz in the E715 camp, where they were put to work laying cables and pipes, loading freight cars, or in skilled labour positions. Another theory is that the names on the list were British men who had switched sides, working for the British SS division during the war. Number 1. Anne Frank. Anne Frank's diary changed the way we look at World War II. It took the conflict from something mind-bogglingly massive and turned it into something very, very personal. We all know how the story ends. The warehouse where the family hid for 2 years was raided in 1944. The 8 people hiding there were arrested, and only Otto Frank, Anne's father, lived through the war. It was an anonymous phone call that led the Gestapo to their hiding place, and no one has ever been able to say who made that call. There are plenty of theories. One theory says that it was Tony Allers, a friend of Otto Frank's for several years before they went into hiding. In 2002, a biography of Otto Frank was published, and Anton Allers came forward claiming that it was his father who had betrayed the family. Anton painted the picture of a hateful, abusive man who confessed to his granddaughter that he had been there when the Franks went into hiding, and was there when they came out again. Earlier investigations have also suggested that the phone call may have come from warehouse employees. During a 1948 investigation, employees at the warehouse stated that they had known about the hiding family 2 weeks prior to their capture. The records of the questioning are sorely incomplete. One of the most frequently named possibilities for the betrayer is the warehouse manager, Willem van Maren. Van Maren was known for stealing from the warehouse, but by the time suspicion was really turned on him, many of the people who could have testified against him were already dead, including the Nazi officer who took the phone call, Julius Detmann, who committed suicide not long after the end of the war. There is also the possibility it was a woman named Lena Hartog van Bladeren, a cleaning lady and wife of one of the warehouse employees. She testified to knowing there were Jews being hidden on her employer's property. She also said she feared for the safety of her husband should they ever be caught. So that's it for today's video. Thank you for watching, and as always, make sure to tune in again tomorrow for another episode.